On today's episode of the Believe in NFL Draft Prospects podcast, my co-host Ryan Roberts and I were joined by Coastal Carolina tight end Isaiah Likely for the second time during this 2022 cycle. He hopped on to share his thoughts on how the draft process has gone for him and what he expects to happen and hopefully will occur during his draft day. But before we get to that interview though, folks, I want to tell you about today's sponsors. We're finally here. The top teams in college basketball have been determined, and the Final Four is set. Looking to wager on these games or the national championship? Head on over to betonline.ag on your desktop or mobile device to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code BELIEVE to get started. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all of your updated odds and info, along with player props and new contests throughout the year. It's the best source for all of your sports wagering needs, including live betting and everyone's favorite Vegas casino and poker games. It's super easy to get started, so join today. Learn why everyone is saying BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to wager on sports. BetOnline, where the game starts.
Now joining the Believe in NFL Draft Prospect podcast, another exclusive interview into the 2022 NFL Draft class. We have a repeat attendee here on the Believe in NFL Draft Prospect podcast. We got Mr. Isaiah Likely, star tight end out of Coastal Carolina, 2022 Senior Bowl participant, 2022 Combine invite, All-American. He's done a little bit of everything. Isaiah, it's been a wild ride, man. How's everything been, brother?
Been good. I mean, coming down to the stretch, really being where your feet are and just taking everything in for grass and letting yourself know that you're almost at your final stage.
I know, man, you're winding down the stretch, but I just want to kind of ask you a little brief because I know we're going to go a little more in depth about every aspect of the process so far, but just how has overall the pre-draft process been? I know it's very hectic. It's a little chaotic, but how has just everything been for you?
Like you said, I mean, at first everything's chaotic. I mean, you just get thrown in the wildfire from your last college snap in a bowl game or whether it was your last game. And then at that moment, it's time to train like a pro. And then you just prepare for the combine, you prepare for pro day, and you prepare for them all-star games, and everything's just flying by. And you're not really realizing that, man, one of the obstacles is finally over. Then you got to go to another one, and then that's over. And then before you know it, you're sitting like me after pro day, and it's just now it's the waiting game. Now it's just you sit back, reflect, smile, and just tell everybody thank you along the way.
And speaking on that process of getting ready, where were you training at for your pro day and combine prep, and maybe who were some of the guys that you were working with?
Michael Johnson Performance. I was out there in Dallas. I had B-Mac, that we call him. I called Jay. I had Kevin. I had Diana helping me with physiotherapy. And then when I came to Coastal, I had my whole family. I mean, my second family at Coastal. So everybody helped me along the way. Is always grateful.
Isaiah, any good partaking in barbecue down in Texas?
I went to some well-known place called Haywire out in Texas.
Nice.
Really good there. It was really good food, actually.
How does that compare to the Carolina barbecue? Which would you say is better?
I'd probably say Dallas got them beat in that aspect.
Ooh.
It was just a different taste out there. And then when I came back, it's probably because I'm used to it now, though. So like, when I came back, there was obviously those places where you had to go when you came back. But in Dallas, it was just like something different, and it definitely sat well.
So hitting specifically on the NFL Combine, that was your second stage of this journey. You went to the Senior Bowl. And at the Combine, you didn't do some of the athletic testing, but you still participated in a lot of these tight end drills. I'm just a little curious on what was the decision to maybe not run a 40 in some of those other athletic testing drills?
You have a game plan that you go over with your agency, and then your training facility, and they just let you know that what you should do and what you shouldn't do. And I highlighted, like, a lot of people understood that, it's on file that I was going through a pes anserin. My knee was inflamed just from the Senior Bowl. So I battled through a lot of stuff during the Senior Bowl just to, show the aspects of my game and still being one of those top receiving aspects. And then after, just not having as much time to train for the 40 as most people would at the Combine, but still showing that I'm that explosive kid throughout the position work, and then having the highest vertical at the Combine for my group.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I was happy to see the vertical, and then obviously you just tested at the pro day as well, which I know we're going to ask in a couple of minutes, man. But I wanted to ask about the combine because we've talked to a lot of players, obviously since they come back. Like I just had Leo Chanel on my other podcast recently, the Wisconsin linebacker, and I have some mixed feelings about where the combine's kind of going, to be honest with you, because it's like everything used to be a lot more spread out, right? And then now everything's like you're getting the measurements. You're going to hit the bench press. You're going to do everything kind of in one day, which is obviously more for the viewership. But just in your general just outlook, how was just your experience in Indianapolis? How did you enjoy the combine experience in general?
I like the combine. I mean, I felt like for the most part, it helped you prepare like a pro. I mean, it just shows you that it's not like college. I mean, a lot of people don't really necessarily work on your time. I mean, you got to be able to be up those early mornings. You got to be able to be attentive all throughout the day up until you go to sleep. And it just lets you know that if you really love football and you really love and want to go to that next level, that you got to understand the competitive nature and really the hardship that you got to be able to put in and day out to be able to be at that next level and be able to be a pro, to be honest.
And how were those interviews? Because obviously they get those 15-minute blocks, and I know they try to squeeze out every single second, man. What was it? What was the conversation just with teams in that setting?
So like this at the Senior Bowl, they kind of prepare you more when you go to the combine. So you have this thing called informals and you have formals. Informals are those 20-minute blocks, like you were saying, where they just throw a lot of information at you. Some trying to hear about your background. Others try to teach you a couple plays in the install, and then others try to just test your knowledge and see how much football you know. And then sometimes you'll meet with area scouts. Sometimes you'll meet with position coaches. Other times it'll be head coach. Sometimes at the combine, I know it was. But really in those informals is just how much can a team teach you, or how much can a team really get from you in those 20 minutes to make you want to come back or make them want to reach out again to you. And then on the formal aspect, it's more of, okay, those teams know about you. Those teams really like you. What sets you apart from those players at your position?
Did you get any weird questions? Like, what was like the weirdest one, if you could? Because there's always that one weird question from a team. You don't have to say who it was. I'm just curious.
I had a lot. Like it was. I met with probably almost all 32. So it was. I mean, some will make you like think and reflect. Like, what's one mistake that you had as a young kid that you would wish that you took back, and like now you got to think about everything you've done as a child and just be like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Put my finger on the stove. Mommy said it was too hot. Some things that make you think and look back as a kid, like, why would I do that? And it's just some type of question.
Man, you got to look back at your entire life, man. That's a lot for a 20-minute block.
Take 5 minutes just to get something. Right?
Yeah. Well, Isaiah, I want to ask a little bit. Me and Joe were talking about this a little bit before we went on. I kind of want to do a two-parter here. I guess the first part would just be about Coastal Carolina a little bit, right? Because I've talked to all you guys in the preseason, right? And everybody was just like, man, playing in Myrtle Beach and the experience and the campus life is just fantastic. And obviously you guys had the big rise for the program over the last couple of years. Talk to me about the class that you all have coming out this year, obviously with guys like Jeffrey Gunter, Teddy Gallagher, Silas Kelly. It's obviously a really talented group that's coming out. How much does that group just mean to you, and just to kind of experience this a little bit together?
I mean, everybody's seen like nobody has more fun than Coastal, and that just goes upon not only on the field but off the field, and that's only because of the chemistry we built off the field. I mean, when you watch our pro day, you don't just watch a couple guys going through drills alone. You watch your brother pushing you that extra rep, that extra mile, the extra yard, just to see you flourish and watch you accomplish your dream, because they know as well as you do that that's what you want. This is what you set your sights on. This is what you want your goals to be. So they're going to push you to the farthest extent for you to be able to reach that goal. And when you come out with CJ, Teron, play with Teron, play with Silas, and you watch all of them, and you really watch them perfect their crafts, and then you realize that you're not only going up against NFL caliber players that you practice with them every day, that you can actually play at that next level. And that's something that, will always stick with me, just having them be able to push me the extra mile and be able to be the competitor I am to this day.
And we actually had a couple other guys on the podcast that ended up going back to school who were draft eligible. And obviously they took that extension of their eligibility. Talk to me a little bit about, and just maybe highlight a few guys that are the next wave of Coastal Carolina prospects, because there's a lot of talent going back to the program for sure, and I expect them to be very competitive over the next couple
Yeah.
years.
Everybody knows about, one of the greatest quarterbacks I say in the country. I mean, Grayson McCall is just a kid with a lightning in a bottle. I mean, he's just a player that you got to watch out on first, second, third, and fourth down. And then you got other players that help, like I'd say Reese White, Braden Bennett. He was just number one, the running back. He was a highlight runner. You have slot receiver like Tyson Mosley, Sam Pickney from Georgia State had came this past year, transferred. And then you have people on defense like Gerard Clark, the Jordan Strong, Lance Boykin, and you just watch them all work and watch them all flourish when we was playing, and seeing them now coming back when you watch them there in spring, and it's a whole different level that they're trying to tap into, realizing that seeing the guys in front of them and seeing how much NFL scouts we had and the NFL caliber players we had, and they just want to be able to come to that next level, and it just shows them, it shines a new light on them.
So Isaiah, you just participated in your pro day, and as we've said a couple times now, you're winding down on the process. Going into the pro day for you, what were some of the goals that you were maybe trying to hit in specific things, and then how would you evaluate the experience and your performance overall?
Just highlighting really just, everybody comes back to numbers, this, numbers, that, but at the end of the day, scouts want to know if you play football. I mean, my film speaks highly about myself. I don't really have to go into logistics in my pro day. Scouts really came out there to understand that if I was the same person they watch on film, am I the same person that gets in the hands, breaks it? If I still have natural hands, if I go up and high point a ball, do I get in and out of my breaks efficiently? And then if I can't, am I a willing blocker and then competitive blocker when they tell me to? And I felt like I highlighted most of that stuff in my pro day and just showing them that you're not getting a Olympian. You're getting an Isaiah Likely, the football player. You're getting Isaiah Likely that's coming in on that 52-man roster and is looking for a starting job right now, right now.
You mentioned some issues with your knee, and I'm just curious, were teams aware of that injury that you suffered during the Senior Bowl that you mentioned?
I didn't hear you. One more time.
So that you mentioned earlier that you were dealing with some stuff with your knee that happened during the Senior Bowl. Were teams aware of that that was going on for you?
Yeah, I mean, teams are like it's on record. I mean, teams had watched me battle through an injury in 2020 year, so they know the type of player I am. They know I'm a selfless player. I mean, they know that I'm a competitor. I mean, I'll go out there and play a whole game injured, and I'll act like it never happened. But I mean, when they came out to my pro day, they wanted to see me be a football player. They still wanted to see me get in and out of my breaks. They still wanted to see me compete in every aspect, every drill they wanted to put me through. And I felt like when it came to routes and blocking, I mean, I was Isaiah Likely. I was my player. I was myself.
Isaiah, I just went to the Notre Dame Pro Day actually this past weekend, and it was cool because they have like the little rafter where like they had the underclassmen that were able to watch and kind of like check out their guys going throughout the process. I'm curious if maybe in the past, maybe last year or the year before, you had an opportunity to maybe check in on the guys that were going through the process, because I'm curious on how big of a spectacle this has become, because like I said, it was such a great class that you guys had coming out this year. I imagine there were a ton of scouts, a ton of evaluators that made that trip to Coastal.
So when it was last year, when I was watching as a junior, when we only had Teron and CJ, we had us on like the second floor when Teron and then we're bench pressing. We're over here banging on the glass, that extra rep in because we want to see, we want to see them do their best. So we're over here encouraging as much as we can. And we look like, some kids in the candy shop that your mom would tell you, back up. But, like, scouts loved it. I mean, the scouts love when you encourage your teammates because at the end of the day, those are your brothers. And it's one thing to say it, but it's another thing to preach it and really live it. So I felt like that's what a lot of scouts that understood when you came to Coastal, you were going to see a lot of kids encourage another one of their players. And this past year, I mean, whether it was you being tired from your drill, you would see us, like, neglect going to our interview right then and there because we wanted to make sure to bring up our brother and let him know that just to be yourself and be able to just highlight the things that they already know about you.
Man, that speaks a lot for the class act that you guys have, obviously, at Coastal. And I wanted to ask a little bit because before we started, you mentioned, kind of the plans and getting back home here kind of soon. I wanted to just, kind of curious, flashing forward to draft day a little bit, man. I'm sure it's something that you thought about a little bit. What will you be kind of be doing? And just, I guess, how much of a surreal moment is that going to be when you get that phone call and you kind of share that moment with your family and friends?
Dang. I mean, I do think about it here and there. I don't try to like hold upon and really try to just always soak it in just for the simple fact that it's almost here. It's not here. So just living every moment I can, every time my feet step on the ground, just to be a better person I am that day. But when I do call my mom, when I do call my grandmother, and they start addressing me and start talking about it, it's a surreal moment. I mean, you finally get to be able to be that superhero, quote unquote, that everybody talks about as a young kid, and then as to your family. So just taking on that bigger role and understanding that you're almost in that position to be where you could take care of your family and you can understand and look at people and tell the ones that you love that you got them. And that's always something I warm my heart.
So is the plan though? You're heading back to Massachusetts for
Yeah, I'll be in Massachusetts with my sister, my grandmother, my mama.
So I played college football in New England. I played at University of Rhode Island, and I played with a lot of guys that came out of Massachusetts, including Kyle Murphy, who I think he's still on the Giants right now. And I'm just curious from like your perspective, because the guys that I know and that I played with, they always shared with me the limitations of trying to get recruited in New England. So like for you, how did that impact you as a recruit coming out?
It definitely shows you, when you go to a down south school like Coastal, a lot of people don't really know up north as a football territory. Mm-hmm. So just watching me, and then like a lot of players tell me like, man, Zay, you don't really play from like you from up north. Like, where you really from? And I'll tell them like, no, I'm from up north. I'm from Massachusetts. Like, we play football up north, and you run around you run across the right team, you're gonna get punched in your mouth, because we don't take that lightly, and especially the school I came from. We have a lot of great players that came out of there, and it's just like we take that chip on our shoulder and let them know that like that when you play me, you better bring your all, because I'm giving you nothing short of it.
Well, Isaiah, I don't know if you keep tabs too much on the Massachusetts schools right now, man, but like the class that's coming up next year in seniors, it's an insane class, man. Like there's a first ever 5-star recruit in Massachusetts this year in 24/7 history, man. So like Massachusetts is kind of going the right direction, it seems like a little bit.
I mean, like I was just saying, I mean, at Coastal Carolina, we had Josiah Stewart, true freshman. He came from the same high school I came from, and he led fifth in the nation in sacks. And that's behind Hutchinson, that's behind Kavion, that's behind all of them. As a true freshman, you just throw him in the fire, and he brings you something like that as an All-American. I mean, that's just something that coaches have started bringing upon themselves. Like, maybe they do play football up there. Let me go send some people and see what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So my last question, I don't know if Joe has a follow-up after this, but my last question is just a little bit about the obviously the opportunity to play, because I want to kind of hear a little bit about like, hey, maybe if there's a couple teams that you've had some really nice interviews with, if there's somebody that you've had stuff set up with. But I have to ask, to start that off, is there a New England Patriots fandom a part of that Massachusetts?
There's got to be. Everybody from there is.
Growing up, you're always going to love the Pats, and that's just something that's always going to warm your heart. But wherever I go is the team that's always going to get my love unconditionally.
I love it, man. I love it. Is there a couple teams maybe that you could just kind of shout out real quick that you have interviews set up with, or you've just had nice sit downs with so far?
So when I had formals at the Combine, it was the Giants, Jets, Lions, Cowboys, Jaguars, Browns, Bengals, Raiders, and Raiders. And then my top 30 visits, I have the Cardinals, the Jets, and the Buffalo Bills. And then I've had Zoom calls with the Chargers, had Zoom calls with the Broncos, had a private workout with the Saints, had a private workout with the Colts. So it's just been all clustered. I mean, I just you'll never hear me talk about it, because I just keep to myself and let the fans and let everybody think what they want, because when draft day comes, they know who they're going to get.
So the follow-up question I had for that, what kind of role do you think you can provide for these teams when you get drafted?
A lot of teams understand, like Coastal Carolina, when you watch their film, you don't watch me playing just a regular wide tight end. You watch me as a versatile chess piece, as Coach Chad would like to call me, where I could play in line, I play in the slot, and I play out wide, either to the field or to the boundary. And you just let me work. I mean, you can't, when I'm in the game, you can't just put no regular linebacker in, because you have to be able to acknowledge that my presence in the game. And then you can't put no regular DB on me, because at the end of the day, I am a tight end. I'm not going to let a regular size DB just be able to stop me from doing what I do and doing what I love. So when I'm in the game, teams know that you're getting a versatile piece, where teams have to actually plan and have to understand that okay, let's remember that Isaiah Likely isn't no regular tight end. There's not a lot of tight ends that are coming out, or any tight end that's coming out that had 90-yard touchdown. So when you watch my film, when you watch me do what I do, and when you prep for me, you have to understand that I'm really a nightmare when it comes to this passing game. And then the run game, it gets shunned away because of what I do in the passing game is so enlightened and so electrifying that, okay, you think I'm only in here to pass. Okay, so when I'm driving your player down the field and we're running for an 80-yard touchdown, now you have to also understand that, okay, who are we really playing? What are we really getting out of? Because at the end of the day, I'm a competitor. I love this game. I'm playing it since I've been 4 years old. So when I'm on the field, I'm in there to win.
Mm-hmm. Coming to a TV near you on a Sunday for your favorite team, Mr. Isaiah Likely, star tight end out of Coastal. Isaiah, can you just real quick, just drop any social media tags you want real quick so people that can follow along with your journey as you go head towards draft day?
Twitter, you can find me at DougGorilla_4, and then Instagram, it's Isaiah Likely _4.
Love it, brother. Well, appreciate you again. Second time on the show, Isaiah Likely. Thank you so much, man. This was fantastic. Just getting a little bit of insight. Wishing you the best of luck here. Just a few weeks, but you've certainly earned this, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you.